Live for sure, but we're going to assume that we are just about live here because I am sitting in the control room and I am in the captain's chair and we look to be good. Adam, welcome to the Awesemo early bird. Oh, it's not the early bird, Adam. It feels like it's the early bird. It's the Awesemo DFS strategy show. We have so many. I was looking yesterday. I think we had 10 hours of programming. How amazing is that?
Yeah. Yesterday was a really busy day because we had the Awesemo show. We had the live betting show as well. I think.
And on the contrary, and live before
Yeah,
lock.
that's what I meant by the Awesemo show.
And strategy. It was a good time here. It was a good time. Let's see. All right, we've got an 8 gamer today, and we've got one early game at 5 o'clock. We're eschewing that one. It's not going to be in the mix, but we've got a healthy set of games here, Adam. We've got a bunch of teams on a back-to-back. We talked about that. We had John Wall is dealing with, I hear heel, I hear bone spurs. When I think of bone spurs, I always think of the ankle, but I don't really, last time I checked, I didn't spend 7 years going to medical school. So my my armchair quarterbacking or surgery consultation may not be the best, but looks like we could be without him for a while. We saw what happens when you have literally no talented NBA players on the floor. The scores go down dramatically, but still got some cheapies there. We had a little bit of a sad face there in the late game, unless you chose Lou Williams, but we get to look at the Clippers again today. And we've got a couple new teams. So about half the teams are on back-to-back. Everybody who's on a back-to-back is playing another team that played last night, which is relatively fair. Or at least I think that's what it was when I was doing my write-up last night, checking on it. See, there we go. Hold it up in front of the camera. There you are. There's the names. So let's just move in here, Adam. If you have not yet jumped into Yahoo, go over there really, really quick because those contests are about to fill.
They are full.
They are full. You missed it. They sized them down a little bit for, I think it must have been Thursday, and then obviously today for Saturday. But yesterday there was room in them, both of them up until the end. Not quite as much as there has been in the past, as people are getting used to going over there and playing. But the $25 added, or 25% added to the prize pool, has been quite nice. They are doing that for the $1 Million Baller Week 17, which is going to be running tomorrow. This will be the third time that they have done this. The first week it came within, I think, about 600-700 of filling. Last week it was inside of 2,000, but not quite as full as the week before. I don't know if that was a result of the holiday or if it was something related to just, people weren't as fired up about it, but I've definitely put all 10 of my teams in there. We do have a free article on the Awesemo homepage. I'm dropping that link into chat now. That will also give you the link and instructions on how to get the $30 for your initial deposit bonus. So if you already have an account over at Yahoo, that's fine. We all play fantasy sports there. If you've not yet made a DFS deposit since they launched Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports almost 4 years ago, you can use the promo code AWESEMO, and they will match up to your first $30 in Yahoo player points, which are usable for immediate entry into any contest. And it's very easy because once you sign up for a contest, it gives you the choice. Do you want to use the player points or do you want to use your actual bankroll? So if you were to make a $30 deposit, in theory, if it was your first deposit and use the promo code, you could get 3 entries into that fun contest for the price of $30. So it's a really good deal to jump on in there now. Adam, they want to know if you just got home from the bar.
No, I actually came home relatively early last night. I think I got home at like 11:30 midnight. I was in bed by like 1:30.
See, this is the Adam look. I can never tell. Sometimes we end the show and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm hungover." And I'm like, I couldn't tell. And then now chat's saying, is Adam tired and hungover? We can't tell. So.
Tired, yeah, not hungover though.
But anyway,
I'm just not a morning person at all. So hungover or not, I will always look and probably sound like shit on these shows.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. When I grew up on the East Coast or the West Coast, I was always a morning person, like to go to bed early, all that. Come out here to the West Coast or East Coast, you don't want to keep West Coast hours because people don't get to work until like 9 o'clock or later in most office areas, and then you stay till 6 o'clock. Which when I was on the West Coast, I was eating dinner by 6 o'clock. I would be into work by 7:15, 7:30 tops, and have already gone to the gym. So I'm now embracing the relaxing phase, staying up late, sports start later. Adam, it's a whole new world. It took me about 10 years to get used to Sunday football starting at 1 o'clock.
Even when I was in undergrad, like homework and stuff got done between hours of like 2 and 4 a.m. and I just got nothing done during the day. Like I've just always been, I get stuff done at night.
Oh, good times. Good times. Good times. All right, let's look at the games here. We will go game by game. We do have New Orleans hosting Houston. If you guys listen to the pod, which we run 6 days a week, the Early Bird podcast, I had a little moment where I was like, wait, why is this game starting at 7 o'clock? Because I had written it down wrong, and I thought that it was in Houston. It is, in fact, in New Orleans, so we get to see the Beard going against the Brow. I sort of lied. The New Orleans Pelicans are on a back-to-back. Houston is not, so that's one of the teams that is not. Adam, let's start off with back-to-back there with Anthony Davis. He was phenomenal last night. That game almost went into overtime. It was very exciting. He was just hitting shot after shot. The only thing more impressive than Anthony Davis in the fourth quarter was Dirk Nowitzki. When he'd get somebody short on him from the elbow, he'd just turn and swish it. It was like, go Dirk! And then he'd come down on defense and just kind of watch.
Yeah, it sounds about right for Dirk.
But talk to me about Davis. Is he going to be the marquee guy that we're trying to get to this on Saturday's slate?
I mean, I have him behind Harden, but I think it also depends on the site. On Yahoo, I think it's basically impossible not to have both Davis and Harden in your lineup. There's just so many like $10 to $12 guys that are viable that it's really, really easy to get to them both. But on DraftKings and FanDuel, I think it's a little bit tougher, at least on DraftKings. But there's nothing wrong with the spot here for Anthony Davis. He's obviously a really, really good play. Houston is not good defensively. The kind of the tiebreaker though is that Mirotic being out just doesn't have the same impact on Davis that Chris Paul being out does on Harden, and they are similarly priced. And then on top of that, you do have Davis on the back-to-back, which isn't something that I really factor in all that much, just because it's really hard to quantify, when it's going to affect the player and who it's going to affect. There's just so much noise in it. But as kind of a tiebreaker here, one of these guys played 43 minutes last night, including 24 minutes in the second half, and one of them did not. And the one that did not is the one that I prefer anyway. So, obviously nothing wrong with playing Anthony Davis. If there is a big ownership gap between him and Harden, then he becomes more interesting to me. But I'm not really expecting that to happen with him coming off of an 83-point game last night. So, yeah, like Davis is good. I just like Harden more.
Right. Looking up and down, we'll move along here with the Rockets. Looking up and down the remainder of their lineup. If you're on Yahoo, we now have Eric Gordon at small forward, which is a change. He was a shooting guard there the other day. Let me just confirm that. Yes, he is still, his salary went up a whole dollar, Adam, but he is now $14 and small forward eligible. So that's potentially in play. $32 for Clint Capella, PJ Tucker at 11, Austin Rivers at 11. Considering those prices first, and then we'll move over to DraftKings. Do you like these guys, or are they some intriguing fillers for you?
Well, I just wanted to kind of double back. I forgot to mention I like Julius Randle on DraftKings, where he's a $7,800 power forward. I think that's a really good way to get exposure to New Orleans without having to pay up for Davis. But going over to the Yahoo pricing on Houston, Eric Gordon is really appealing on Yahoo. Like I hate Eric Gordon, and I've kind of been talking down on him and not really been looking to roster him, even with Chris Paul out on DraftKings or FanDuel. But small forward eligibility, so a weak position, and then just a really, really cheap $14 price tag in a pace-up spot against a New Orleans defense that is not particularly good. It's really difficult not to like Eric Gordon because he will play 36 to 38 minutes. It's just a matter of he needs his shot to fall to be productive, and his price tag on DraftKings and FanDuel, you need him to shoot pretty well to give you a score that you're happy with. But at $14 on Yahoo, it's just a totally different ballpark, and so I expect that I will have a lot of him there.
Yeah, and that's one of those where I'm going to keep a couple different tabs open here. We'll hit on those, even though those contests did fill. I know a bunch of people got into them early. That's going to be something that we'll want to do, but their pricing is so unique there. I think it's worthwhile talking through it because they're scoring same as DraftKings, or pardon me, FanDuel. Their positions, same as DraftKings, but no multi-position eligibility. And then their scoring is unique unto itself. They have a $10 floor off of a $200 salary cap, but then the way they price their top tier, they miss guys between $10 and $14. I don't think they miss them, but if you go look, you can find some definite diamonds in the rough. But then they also have a unique mid tier where you have to think of, oh my God, this guy's 24. That's too much. But then if you go over and look at Yahoo or check Yahoo pricing and placement versus FanDuel or DraftKings, all of a sudden you're like, oh, good God, that guy's solidly in the mid tier, almost in the upper tier, fringe upper tier play, and he's the bottom of the mid tier on Yahoo. So you got to think of things differently. Sometimes it's tough for people to grasp playing multiple sites just with the wildly differing price points. And I think that's something that gives a little bit of edge to those of you that are focusing specifically on Yahoo, or at least stepping back and saying, okay, now I can't just jam in my same roster. You can, but you may end up being $30 short or have $30 extra, depending what's going on Yahoo.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh and I talked about that a little bit yesterday too, as far as making ownership pivots in the Yahoo tournaments, because obviously that's something that we focus a lot of time and energy on DraftKings and FanDuel, but we both kind of haven't been doing it as much on Yahoo because, for one, the overlay just obviously makes it more profitable to just play good lineups, but also it's time consuming, and it's just the site's different. It's still kind of new to people. So if you are focusing on Yahoo, like if you're playing $100 a night or whatever, and that money's on Yahoo and that's all you have to focus on, then I think you can create an edge for yourself too by really going through figuring out who the quote unquote optimal plays are, but then finding pivots, because I think a lot of people probably aren't doing that quite as much. You're seeing really high ownership on some guys over there.
All right, so we have got some fun little things being pointed out here in chat. Thank you for that one. They're mentioning that, of course, Eric Gordon played for the Pelicans at one point, and they're saying, I'm just looking to double check, he won the three-point contest there at the All-Star game that was held in New Orleans, it looks like, as well. So just, I don't know, throwing it out there. But the $14 is going to make him a screaming price point there for that one. But shout out to Mike Verderosa for giving us that one. I probably did not do very, very well on your last name, but hey, shout out. There you go. Can't argue with that. Let's see. Wrapping up the Houston side, anybody else standing out on any of the various sites that we can play on these days?
So I mean, I just wanted to talk about Harden a little bit more, and why I like him more than Davis. So obviously he still hasn't had that monster game for us since Chris Paul went down, but the usage is still there, up over 42%. He has a 54% assist percentage without Paul. But I went back and looked through the last few games, and over the last two, he's averaged 15 potential assists per game. In the 3 games Paul's been out, plus the game that he played 12 minutes, Harden's averaged 17 and a half potential assists across those 4 games, compared to about 14.8 for the season. But if you look at his conversion percentage in those games compared to the full season, he's run kind of bad in that only about 48% of his potential assists have been converted over those 4 games, compared to about 55% for the season. So I expect his assist numbers to increase. And then obviously, with the exception of last game against Boston when he shot the lights out, he shot really poorly in the first 2 games without Chris Paul. So he's really just kind of not put it together yet, and he's still getting 60 to 66 points a night. Now you get a really, really big pace-up spot against New Orleans. It's really tough for me not to like Harden here. His minutes have come down a little bit. Like, he's playing 38 to 39 with the addition of Austin Rivers, but still think that he has upside for more, depending on game flow.
All right, the one guy that I'm now, I've got the camera up, I'm looking at you, Austin Rivers. Bleh, there's the bleh face. 3,800 though on DK, shooting guard eligible. He's the last guy I'm considering. Thoughts on him, or shall we clean up what we got on Portland or the Pellies?
If I get some of him, it's fine. It's just that it's the kind of play that we talk about a lot, where he probably does perfectly fine on a point per dollar basis because he's so cheap. If you're content with getting like 6 times your salary at $3,800, there's a pretty good chance he gets there. But if you're looking for someone that actually helps you in tournaments, that doesn't get it done because there's opportunity cost to actually using your roster spot, and getting 20 points from someone doesn't do anything for you, regardless of how cheap they are, in most cases. So if I get some Rivers, that's fine. It is a nice matchup. He should play around 30 minutes, but I think that there are pivots that'll probably be lower owned. The other day I'd mentioned Iman Shumpert as a guy that I would rather play than Rivers, and it worked out much better than I expected. But there's going to be plays like that again today, I would assume, where Rivers draws some attention because he's playing 30 plus minutes. But even from his team, you get Gerald Green, who's going to play less minutes, but shoots the ball more, is more explosive, and projects similarly at lower ownership. So, I think that's a spot you can go to. You have Malik Monk playing less minutes, but a better point per minute guy. There's spots I can go to here where, I take a little bit more of a risk on how many minutes they're going to play, but chances are you get a better performance than Austin Rivers is going to give you.
Fair enough. A couple things I want to throw out there. We've got we're sponsored by Thrive, so I want to remind everybody we have sometimes a different group of viewers on Saturday mornings, so that's why Adam is going to hit on a few things, or I'm going to kind of steer him that way on stuff that you guys hear during the week, because this is important things to consider as you are going through building your lineups, taking the time to do that. And there's a lot of us that are weekend warriors, and and then during the week we're cubicle warriors, so we may not get to play as much or dabble. So it's always good to hear some different things. But I want to talk about Thrive for just a second. I'm going to drop that link in chat. Thrive is a prop-based app. It's kind of a fun game. They're constructed where they give you 20 questions. You select 10 of them, and it's binary. It's either or, and it'll be, for football, it'll be, will they be higher or lower for receptions or passing yards or etc. For basketball, it could be points scored. It could be a combination of assists plus rebounds, or steals plus points, or things of that nature. But if you go to that link, the bit.ly link there, it'll take you to the download page on their site. Download it. It'll be a phone-based app. You can also get to it on the computer, but it's a little slicker there on the app. And they're offering deposit bonuses. You come through on that link and download it on the app. A $10 deposit bonus will be matched, or $10 deposit will be matched with a $10 deposit bonus. A $100 deposit will be matched with a $20 deposit bonus, and a $200 deposit will be matched with $50 of a deposit bonus, and that's usable immediately. So these are some good deals. It's a one-time offer, so you only get it on your first deposit, but definitely check out the people over at Thrive. Let's see. Oh, they think I'm on a roller coaster chair ready for takeoff. That's an excellent example. If you've ever been to the Viper in is it the Viper? The Viper is at Magic Mountain out there. The chairs are similar to this. And then also at, I forget which hotel it is. Is it New York, that has the big roller coaster, but the one that you go up seemingly forever before your life flashes in front of your eyes? It does feel like that. I'm holding on, and then you'll see me with the picture. Yay! At the end. Good times there. They say we don't know what we're talking about. Prince Clark doesn't think we know what we're talking about. Dude, Adam, if you could only see Adam's DMs that he gets from all of the other top players asking him 2v2s, minutes projection questions, and all of that other stuff, you would be singing a different tune. As for your old pal, well, I'm not the heavy volume gamer that I was several years ago, and nowhere near any of those other guys, but I did play well into the six figures, multiple six figures. Do not do that anymore because it's a little bit cray-cray. But I have been profitable 6 out of the last 7 years, assuming I don't screw anything up in the next 72 hours. So last year was my first losing year. Sad. But I'm back, and I've won. So every year since 2011, I've lost just 1 year. So enjoy. Play within your means. This is not a dick swinging contest. This is a how can I survive? How can I have fun? And remember, the last time you went golfing, fishing, perhaps to the movies, I don't know, some of you guys are probably into knitting, sewing circles, that sort of thing. Did you ever get paid for doing that? No, probably not. So your ROI on going to the movie theater, not good. Pellies, Adam, anything else you want to wrap up? So you're okay with Randall, any of the tertiary plays, perhaps a Drew Holiday, or shall we continue to our next game?
Keep an eye on the starting lineup from the Pels. They made a switch at halftime last night. Etwan Moore and Solomon Hill joined the starting lineup, replacing Frazier and Darius Miller. Darius Miller actually played 0 minutes in the second half. So I'm expecting that they'll stick with that, but Keep an eye on it. If Moore starts, he's 3,900. He's been absolutely awful over the last month. He's averaging like zero point 0.5 fantasy points per minute. But if we can get him 28 to 30 minutes, it becomes a semi-appealing value option.
Semi-appealing value option. What a wonderful transition as we go on over here to the Washington Wizards. Adam, let's go through the laundry list here. There is a chance, a slim chance, that Otto Porter comes back from his knee bruise. I am not going to really be holding my breath. We saw Bradley Beal be phenomenal last night. He did miss shoot around earlier that day, but ended up playing. This is home and home. I written again my games down backwards, so I thought this was a travel day, but it's home, or it's a second home game here. So Beal, he was the only guy that did really well. He made about half his shots. The rest of the team, not so great. Thomas Bryant was relatively solid last night. Intriguing matchup here going against Cody Zeller, who also had a good night. Satoransky, we saw the Satoransky game, played 1 million minutes. Didn't do a whole lot with them, but was out there not making turnovers, making good passes, and not taking bad shots. He got there based on the minutes and his near minimum price tag across the board, but he's not really a tournament upside guy. And then Jeff Green, kind of a meh game, but he should be in line for some serious minutes again tonight. And then Trevor Ariza got the serious minutes, but had a Trevor Ariza game because, wait for it, he still is a better basketball player than he is fantasy player. What do you have for your childhood team, your hometown Wizards here? Talk to me, Adam.
I don't know what the hell DraftKings did with the Wizards. Their prices went down. So
it's because they're bad, Adam. It's because they're bad.
Yeah. Okay. So Satoransky is 3,300 on DraftKings and 3,800 on FanDuel. That's a really easy value play. So it just becomes interesting when you think about it in terms of ownership. Obviously, Satoransky is a clear cash play. Like, there's no reason not to have him in cash on any site at his price tag. Assuming Wall is out, he should play over 30 minutes. He's not a great per minute producer, but he's just cheap enough to where he can average 0.7 fantasy points per minute and still give you a good point per dollar score. If you want to fade him in tournaments, I think that you could. Like, he's unlikely to put up a monster score in terms of raw points, but the price tag's just so cheap on him that I think it's tough to even really get there. Like, it's almost impossible for him to actually fail at that price point. So it's just kind of frustrating how cheap he is, but I think that, obviously a really good play there. Bradley Beal is, once again, one of the best plays on the slate. About a 32% usage rate without John Wall. He's actually been more efficient as well, which is kind of surprising, but more shot volume, more assists, and still playing monster minutes night in and night out. Really tough to get away from Bradley Beal at a still very cheap price tag. You should get about 38 minutes from Trevor Ariza. He's, a 0.75 to 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. He is less likely to really pay off his price tag than Beal or Satoransky, but he's still fine. Thomas Bryant with power forward eligibility on DraftKings is still too cheap. We saw 48 minutes at center last night from Bryant and Mahinmi without Morris. If Morris is out again, I expect that we see similar, just because the options for the Wizards in the front court, if Morris is out, are basically to either play Bryant plus Mahinmi or to give some of Mahinmi's minutes to Jeff Green. But the result of that is getting you more like Sam Decker and Ron Baker and guys that are kind of useless. So I expect that we'll see most, if not all, of the center minutes played by those two if Keith's out, which means that Thomas Bryant, who is greater than a fantasy point per minute producer, should be locked into, near 30 minutes again.
Yeah, and if we look at some of these guys on DraftKings, or probably on Yahoo here, Bryant at 11, that's reasonable. It'll cost you your center spot, but near minimum. I prefer him over Satoransky, but Sato checks in as point guard. Tough one, but you can use him at point guard, or utility. But he's 10, the absolute minimum. Jeff Green, somewhat intriguing at 12 because you can use him. Damn, not a small forward, but a power forward. But there's some plays there. I don't think I'd go with the $24 for Ariza, but $35 for Bradley Beal. Ugh. Once again, I think he's going to be a lineup building block. I think he was close to 50% on the tournaments on Yahoo yesterday. So just general food for thought there. Now, both these teams are coming on a back-to-back. Charlotte, we got to see a glorious game from Cody Zeller. Now, here's someone who's intriguing on Yahoo at 14. He's not truly a discount guy, but he does have 40 plus fantasy point upside. We saw that last night against Brooklyn. He played 26 minutes, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and it was the 5 combined blocks and steals. Now that really set him over the top. He did not have any blocks or any steals in the previous 3 games. So that one's a little bit concerning, but he is going to be going against the Wizards here. How do you think his playing style is going to work? I mean, the rebounds will be there for him, but is this game going to go a little bit small because he is just about a step behind everybody I think that the Wizards would be throwing out there at center?
My interest in Zeller in large part depends on Morris. Like, I haven't seen Morris news. We don't have actual news on him yet, right?
We do not yet. He's still dealing with the sore back.
Yeah. So if Morris is out, then, like I was saying, I think that most, if not all, of Washington's center minutes go to a combination of Thomas Bryant and Jan Mahinmi, which would bode well for Cody Zeller because he should be out there for 30 plus minutes against those guys. If Keefe plays, the problem for Zeller is that you probably get 18 to 20 minutes from Thomas Bryant and you get around 30 minutes from Keefe. If Keefe's playing the 5, you get more Marvin Williams most likely from Charlotte to match up with him, and that can potentially take minutes away from Zeller. So if Keefe's in, it's a downgrade for Zeller. If Keefe's out, it's really tough to not see Zeller playing 30 plus minutes here. And Washington is just absolutely atrocious rebounding. They play at a fast pace. Like they just give up monster games to opposing centers, night in, night out. We saw it last night with Wendell Carter, and there's really no reason not to expect it from Zeller tonight. Obviously he, like you said, he's not someone that normally is going to give you those 45 fantasy point games like he did last night, but the price tag's still so cheap where if he goes out and gives you 30 to 35, like if he can just average a point per minute or a little bit more, that's all you really need from him at this price point. And over the last month, he's averaging just shy of a fantasy point per minute. His usage has gone up to about 16%, which, for him and for someone as efficient as him is, kind of a big deal. The rebounding is there. He's at about a 15% rebounding percentage. So he's doing everything when he's out there. And he should get, again, depending on Keefe's availability, he should get 30 plus minutes if Washington's going to have to play big.
All right. Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lamb. These guys seem like premier plays. Walker, 9,000. That's a little bit spendy there on DraftKings. Jeremy Lamb, 6,100. Perfectly serviceable there. We do know he has some upside. He has turned into the new Nick Batum, the new from a few years ago, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He's the guy that you sit there and shake your head sometimes when you don't have him, and then you shake your head when you do have him as well sometimes. What do you got with that backcourt duo?
So Kemba, I think, is still more expensive than I'm comfortable with as far as like an optimal play or a point per dollar. But there's no question that he has monster upside here against Washington. And Tony Parker being out does give him a little bit higher ceiling just because it's a little easier to imagine him playing, 38 or 40 minutes in some situations as opposed to 36. So in tournaments, I like Kemba. I like Jeremy Lamb too because Parker being out does help to solidify his minutes, but regardless, he's just been playing monster minutes lately. I think that projecting him for 34 to 36 minutes is perfectly reasonable, and he should benefit from how bad Washington is at rebounding. He's someone that when he's in a spot to pick up peripherals to go along with his scoring, that's when you get those really monster games out of him, and this is the kind of matchup where I think he should really thrive. So I like Jeremy Lamb a lot. I think the price tag's still fair, even though it's come up a little bit. And then Marvin Williams depends on Keefe for me. Like I said, if Keefe's in, I like Zeller a little bit less. I would like Marvin Williams a bit more because his minutes have been up as well. And if Keefe is playing center, you should get more Marvin Williams at center, which translates to more better shooting efficiency and more rebounds for Williams. So I'll be keeping an eye on the Keefe news for that reason. And then I guess the only other guy to point out from Charlotte is that Malik Monk is back into the rotation. Tony Parker being out doesn't directly benefit him, or not as much, not too much, because Devontae Graham's the backup point guard. Like Devontae Graham should play whatever point guard minutes Kemba doesn't play, but Parker also plays some minutes alongside Kemba. That's where you could see a couple of extra minutes from Malik Monk. And then on top of that, Miles Bridges has essentially been kicked out of the rotation and Monk has been taking his minutes anyway. So I think that there's a pretty easy path to Malik Monk playing, 18 to 20 minutes here with the upside for more if he plays well and potentially closes over Nick Batum, which we've seen happen before. It's a really appealing spot. He's 3,300. He's a really high usage guy. Like, he's the kind of guy who is very risky. He has basically no floor, but he's the kind of guy that can win you a tournament at 3,300, as opposed to someone like an Austin Rivers or an Etuan Moore, who most likely won't hurt you but won't really help you.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that thorough analysis there, Adam. And you said the magic word. You said thrive, and I know as soon as you said it, AO Rhino just was like, "Oh God, keep talking, Adam. Keep talking. Don't let Emac hear that because he's going to segue that into an ad." No, I'm actually not, but I do want to say you'll get a few ads. You're going to get a few comments, but most of them here are going to help you guys out. But again, yesterday we put 10 hours in front of the paywall. You didn't have to pay anything for it, so you're going to have to listen to a couple ads, a couple things, but it's all things that benefit you guys if you have not already used the promo code. So up to you guys to use them, but that's fine. If you want to get a full free week, I did lie. I'm going to talk about this one. Full free week behind the paywall at Osmo.com. Use the promo code DFS strategy. Choose any package that you would like. Go to Osmo.com. Click on the join button in the upper right. Pick a package. Make sure you get one with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, and you will get 7 free days as long as you use the promo code DFS strategy in the promo code field. That is the last field there. If you cancel anytime up to the first 7 days, you will not be charged, but you're going to like us. You're going to want to be here. Come on, hang out in the Slack, because that is where the real fun happens. Adam, you want to talk some real fun? Let's look at our 7:30 game. Well, fun is one word we can use for it. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Atlanta Hawks, a 218 over under. I'll take the over on that one. Both these teams on a back-to-back here. Both these teams in rebuilding modes and shaking their heads at what they have done with recent draft picks. Let's start off here with Cleveland. Larry Nance moved to coming off the bench. Do you think he'll come back into the starting lineup in this matchup, considering he will be facing both Dwayne Dedmon and Collins?
It's really tough to predict, just because for whatever reason Cleveland kind of seems to hate him and use every excuse that they can not to start him. So I'm assuming they stay with the same starting lineup they did yesterday. Hopefully we get that news relatively early, though.
Yeah, that was not horribly frustrating, because they're running on so few bodies in all of this mix here. Amongst the guys tweaking over here on Yahoo, none particularly stand out. We do get Dwayne Dedmon back at 15. He had a nice game. Adam and I were laughing because we saw people saying, "Oh, he's crushing." So I went and looked at the box score before we started recording our show, and he had 3 points and a rebound in the first 3 minutes. And then we went back and looked what happened after our show, and in the first quarter, the Hawks scored 47 points. Dedmon had that same line because he picked up 2 fouls. Now, he still had a good game. There was plenty of time going ahead, but let's be easy on the he's smashing, he's busting in the first rotations of NBA games. I do know it is fun to get emotionally involved in this. Talk about Dedmon, talk about Collins. I think that's where the solid options are going to be going against Cleveland, that just has a lack of front court presence outside of Nance.
Yeah, so I mean, Dedmon's minutes, obviously up without Alex Len. He got in some foul trouble last night, but still turned in a productive game again with a double-double. The matchup here is dependent on Tristan Thompson. Thompson almost played last night, didn't play. If he plays tonight and starts, it makes it a less appealing matchup. But if he's out and you're dealing with like Channing Frye and Larry Nance, then it's a really good spot again for Dedmon. Huge pace down game, but also a really bad Cleveland defense. So while maybe less possessions than normal for Atlanta, more efficient possessions. So I think you can keep going to Dwayne Dedmon as long as he's going to play around 34 minutes. He's basically a point per minute guy, and the price tag's still cheap enough that you can certainly go there. Decent spot for John Collins as well. The price tag's reasonable. There's not a ton of excess value, I don't think. Like, I would rather play Julius Randle at 7,800 than John Collins at 7,700. But if you're playing a bunch of lineups, getting some Collins in there is fine. Bazemore and Young are okay as well. Nothing other than Dedmon that I really see as a priority from this side, though. I'm more interested in the Cleveland side.
All right, just wanted to hit up, most of these are going to be Cleveland injuries that we've got to keep an eye on, but Alex Len still dealing with the sore lower back. He's questionable. He's played single-digit minutes enough times that I don't think he totally hurts Collins or Dedmon, but we'll just want to keep that in mind if he is ruled in. On the Cleveland side, Tristan Thompson getting closer to a return. Wouldn't surprise me if he popped in there tonight. Wouldn't surprise me if it was next week, but he's been out with a sore foot. Rodney Hood still listed as questionable, dealing with an Achilles injury, if memory serves, but he is someone I don't know that he will play tonight. That just feels like it might be a longer-term injury. And then David Nwaba re-injured the ankle that cost him a handful of games over the last 2 weeks, so he's missed the last couple. He's listed as questionable. We'll have more news on these guys outside shoot-around. Do you think any of these guys are going to play as we do the early look analysis?
I'm proceeding as if they don't, just because Cleveland has no reason to rush anyone back. They're not trying to win games. They don't need to re-injure people. So, obviously, hopefully we get that news sooner rather than later. But I'm assuming that those guys sit, and if they do, it does give you actually a lot of viable options from the Cavs, just because this is such an appealing matchup for them in a huge pace-up spot against an Atlanta team that is not good defensively either. You have these guys at pretty cheap price tags, especially on Yahoo. They're basically all free, but even on DraftKings and FanDuel, reasonable price tags for Colin Sexton, who's 5,200 on DraftKings, Alec Burks at 4,500 on DraftKings. Both of these guys should play, around 30 minutes for Burks, probably 32 to 34 for Sexton if everyone's out. High usage guys in an appealing spot. I think they're, pretty strong plays. Larry Nance still played about 32 minutes last night behind Channing Frye. If Thompson and Ante Zizic are both out again, then it's hard to see Nance not playing around 32 minutes again. And he's over a point per minute producer in this situation, so he'd be fine as well. It really comes down to the injuries here. Jaren Blasingame played 30 minutes last night. You would need everyone to be out and him to start again to expect that to happen. But if it does, he's 3,400 playing 30 minutes against the Hawks.
That was one that you and I talked about as well off air. To get 28 points in the 32 minutes there, Adam, I still think we were right to not play him last night at 10.
Blasingame?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a good player. It's just that the matchup's really appealing here.
Very true. Very true. Anything else from this, or shall we talk about a couple teams that may make the playoffs?
Yeah, we can go to that really slow game.
Boston and Memphis will be squaring off in a game with the 201 over-under here. Adam, we've got nobody I am turning cartwheels for. I would be surprised if anybody pops into my lineups. If we kind of look at it from a point per dollar play, which is, of course, what we need to do over here on the old Yahoo, a couple $10 options, JaMychal Green, Garrett Temple. They're secondary options at best. I'd be shocked if they get over 20, 22 fantasy points in these. Temple would be the one guy I would be interested in going to, just because he does have some steal and block upside, and those are worth 3 over there on the old Yahoo. But I don't think I'm going to end up with anybody from this game at all.
Yeah, I have no priorities in this game. Obviously there are good players like Conley and Gasol and Kyrie that you could make a tournament case for. But as far as guys that I anticipate having in any sort of, high percentage of lineups, there's just nothing here between two slow teams who also are two of the top 5 defensive units in the NBA on an 8-game slate where there are appealing games. I just don't see it. And the guys aren't priced down. That's what's really important. Like Kyrie's 8,800 on DraftKings. That's more expensive than we've seen him lately in a really tough matchup. Gasol's at 7,600, Conley's at 73. There's nobody where it's like, oh, they're priced down for this matchup, so they're back in play. It's just a really, really ugly game.
Here's I don't know. I guess it's an interesting game. New York Knicks going into Utah. We have Ricky Rubio has been dealing with sore back and knee, so he is questionable. Tim Hardaway Jr. missed his last game. He was sick. Luke Cornett is in our lives and heavily discounted. He's 3,500 on FanDuel. He is 4,200 on DraftKings, and he is minimum on Yahoo. Let's start off there. Let's look at Luke Cornett on the road. What do you got for us?
I mean, I think he's a really good play on FanDuel. He's still the absolute minimum. You can drop him if he sucks, and he obviously can really outperform that price tag. One thing we have seen from the Knicks is that when they send Dennis Cantor to the bench, the first time they did it this year was with Mitchell Robinson. They inserted Robinson into the starting lineup. And if you go and if you just like quickly looked at the game logs, you would think that Robinson didn't really play a lot of minutes that often, and so maybe it was just more of like a symbolic thing moving Cantor to the bench. But you have to remember that Mitchell Robinson was fouling out of games at a Jaren Jackson and Wendell Carter like clip when he was starting. And so in the games where he didn't get in foul trouble, you were seeing, 30, 32 minutes from Mitchell Robinson. So I think that that's the case here with Kornet also. I don't have an issue projecting him for around 30 minutes and, giving like 18 to Enes Kanter. Obviously a lot can go wrong there, but I think that the plan, as long as they're starting Kornet, is for him to play the bulk of the minutes. They have no reason to play Enes Kanter. Like, they're not winning this season. Enes Kanter is not a part of their future plans. There's no reason for Fizdale not to want to see what Luke Kornet can do. So I think that projecting him for around 30 minutes is probably the right way to go. It makes him a decent option on DraftKings. It's certainly a spot where if he's projected for really high ownership because of his last game, then I would stay away in tournaments. He shot incredibly well in that game. It's not what you would expect going forward. But if people are going to shy away because he's facing Utah, then I think you still can play him at this price tag. I think it's fine. I just think he's a better play on FanDuel.
Yeah, and that's one of these good ones where the perspective of, as we're bouncing around between the different sites, you need to understand what you're giving up, what you're getting, and what other people may be doing. I mean, that's the key for everything. I mean, basketball, as we say, and lots of people say, that it is the most projectable sport. But now you got to take that information, because everybody's good at that now, and you got to figure out, what are you going to do differently? How are you going to use that for or against you? We throw around terms like chalk and lock play and must play and fade and all this stuff. You got to know what that really means, and comes down to the heart of it. And that's what we do here on the DFS Strategy Show. So our buddy Prince Clark, he is going to be in a timeout here for the next 4.5 minutes. He can come back, that's fine. But come on, we're not talking down players. We're going to spend an hour and a half talking down players. There are more efficient ways to do that, even if we thought we could sway the market. People can see from a mile away people that know what they're doing and people that they don't. It's pretty straightforward. So you may want to just hang out, recalibrate on life there, Prince, and enjoy. Adam, let's now that we've talked about Luke, God, did you see Enes Kanter looking to get in a little bit of a fight last night? Assistant coach action. He's calling people out, saying Giannis is a golden boy. We've seen him do a few internet tough guy things before, but he is wanted by his home government and can't go back to his home country. What do you think here about Kanter? Anybody else here from the Knickerbockers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to Kanter because I'm assuming that Kornet, barring foul trouble or injury or anything, plays around 30. So I can't get the Kanter here. The Tim Hardaway news obviously makes a difference. If he's out, it's more usage for Kevin Knox. It's more usage for Noah Vonleh and Emmanuel Mudiay. Still, obviously, a really unappealing matchup for all of these guys, though. Utah ranks in the top 5 overall defensively. They've been one of the best teams in terms of rim protection. They're one of the best teams at limiting rebounds, at limiting assists. It's just a really, really tough matchup. And the Knicks are not particularly inexpensive. So there's not a lot that I like. If Hardaway were to miss this game, you do have, $3,400 Alonzo Trier, who should play 18 to 20 minutes if you need like a $3,400 guy in max entry. But overall, it's just a really unappealing game outside of maybe some Luke Kornet, especially on FanDuel.
All right. Anybody from the Jazz side here at all? I wouldn't hate anybody popping into my lineup. I mean, Rubio healthy at 19 on Yahoo is fine. Anybody else, this sort of feels like if they get above that basically 5 point per thousand threshold on DraftKings and they start to come in when I'm making my 100 lineups, I'm okay with that. I'll probably match the field or maybe go a little bit lower because there's nobody here that's really standing out from the Jazz as well. What is your take with regards to
I like Rudy Gobert. He's basically always low owned, and he's been playing out of his mind lately. He's averaged about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute over the last month. And should play around 34 minutes if New York can stay in this game, which obviously is a big if. But also, and I'll double check it and post it in in our Slack, but I haven't seen if he's doing it this year. But over the last couple of seasons, one thing that that really has gone overlooked is that Quinn Snyder runs his starters in blowouts at home unless it's like a 30-point game. Like his guys play the fourth quarter. And so if that has been the case this season, that does mitigate a lot of the blowout concerns that maybe people would have here. And it makes it easier to project Gobert to get almost all of his minutes anyway. It's just a matchup where I think he should do really well. Cantor going to the bench improves Gobert's rebounding efficiency also.
All right. Let's see here. We've got 3 more games. This will also be the known as the 9 o'clock slate or the 10 o'clock slate, depending on your site and how they chop things up here. One thing you guys can look at, I know they're not giving the 25% added to the prize pool, but Yahoo does generally run contests with each remaining games at each tip-off time point. Some of them are small, but it's fun to play. It gives you a little rooting interest. You can play for a quarter, you can play for $1, you can play for $100. They have them up and down the price points, but it is a lot of fun, and most of them are guaranteed, and a lot of gamers don't notice this, and particularly in baseball and on Sundays, this is where you could sneak in and get just real overlay just because the contests are not filling. So a lot of people may look at Yahoo today that their great contests filled up. They're not going to go chase some of these secondary contests. So hey, what's wrong with turning $5 into 25? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So do definitely consider that. Adam, we've got our 3 remaining games. Denver and Phoenix, both teams on a back-to-back. I know we laughed and joked off air a little bit about Denver last night. I ended up screwing around and not getting my lineups submitted in time to relock. I submitted them. It was 9:01, so I missed out on getting some Denver backcourt love. I will be playing some of these guys tonight, but let's start with the marquee guy, the one and only Nikola Jokic, which is amazing. Now, in the second game of the season, he had the 11s. He was 11 for 11 from the field against this team. He was 10 for 11 from the line, 11 boards, 11 assists, 80 plus, depending on your scoring system, 80 plus fantasy points. Feels like another great matchup for him. The team is not going to be scheming for him like Coach Popovich did. What do you got for Jokic as a premier option this evening?
Absolutely love him. The price tag rebounded on DraftKings. It seems like one of the only things they did correctly between last night and tonight. You saw Jokic go from 8,800 to 9,500, but I still think it's too cheap of a price tag for Jokic in this spot. I had my concerns against the Spurs last night, and just because they had, basically been double and triple teaming him in the previous game, and it was lowering his usage, leading to more assist opportunities. But here against Phoenix, it's just like the complete opposite as far as an absolutely amazing matchup, because Phoenix just does everything poorly. They're a terrible defense, and Jokic obviously is a very good scorer. He's a leader. He's the leader on the team in usage. Even since Paul Millsap's injury, he's got a 29.5% usage rate over those games. He is a good rebounder. Phoenix is one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. DeAndre Ayton is one of the worst centers in the league at boxing players out. Sorry. It makes it, really, really difficult to keep these guys off the glass. And Phoenix is, again, a really bad defense, and Jokic is a phenomenal passer. So there's increased upside in terms of his potential assists are likely to be converted to actual assists at a higher than average, efficiency. So it's a spot where it wouldn't be surprising at all to see another triple-double from Jokic. And then also the fact that Millsap's out and you have Plumlee playing alongside Jokic, it means that we've seen more minutes from Jokic. He's more frequently playing 34 to 36 minutes now, whereas earlier in the season, he was kind of stuck around 32 in a lot of games. So there's just a lot working in Jokic's favor, and it's really, really difficult for me not to like him.
All right, I'm just calling up the box score here from last night just because I wanted to see what else was going on here. Hernan Gomez got a ton of minutes. We've seen that the last few games. He's hit or miss. Your mileage may vary with him, but he does have some intriguing upside. He's a little spendy on some of the sides from where we would like, but if he stays in that starting lineup, we may see him get a little more run until they get Gary Harris, Will Barton, and the rest of the crew back together, because that bench unit is looking pretty thin, considering they are playing a lot of Morris and Beasley in crucial minutes. And good God, Torrey Craig. Wow. this is not the most imposing lineup here for the Nuggets, but they're doing well. They're 22-11 in the West, which is something to behold. Anybody on some of these tertiary options? Jamal Murray was a guy that I liked last night a lot. He did play 40 minutes, but gets a nice matchup going against a team not interested in defense. He's someone I am giving strong consideration to across the board. Adam, what do you like here from our secondary Nuggets?
Yeah, I mean, I think just mixing and matching a lot of these secondary guys on the Nuggets is a good way to go. I'm looking. I haven't seen news on Malik Beasley. He was injured last night. He left the game early. If he's out, then it should mean more minutes for Monte Morris. It helps to solidify Jamal Murray's minutes. It probably means more minutes for Juancho Hernan-Gomez as well. If he's in, though, I still like Beasley. The minutes have been up lately. He's playing with a ton of confidence right now. He's shooting a lot, and he's still really cheap, and people just don't pay attention to him because he's coming off the bench. So that's some news that I think is certainly worth keeping an eye on, and it's the kind of news that most people will probably just completely ignore whether he's in or out. But it actually makes a big impact here because it is such an appealing spot for Denver. I'm with you on Jamal Murray. He's still just too cheap to play 36 plus minutes against the Suns. Mason Plumlee is also, I think Plumlee is one of the better value options here. He's still, I think, $12 on Yahoo. He's $5,000 on DraftKings, which means he's $700 less expensive than Dwayne Dedmon at the same position. All the things I said about Jokic and why I love the matchup for him, they apply to Plumlee as well. Obviously at a lower scale because he's not Nikola Jokic, but the poor rebounding affects Plumlee. It's a boost for him. He's also a very good passer, not Nikola Jokic level, but he's a good passer. And the fact that Phoenix can't defend, helps him as well. I think that Plumlee's a really, really good play here. I would rank them in order as Jokic, Plumlee, Murray, and then obviously just kind of waiting to see what happens with Malik Beasley.
And I think one, good call out on Beasley, and two, with Plumlee, that's another one. A lot of you guys will see gamers tend to do some historical game log watching. What have you done for me lately? And if you look at Plumlee, I mean, last night it was kind of disappointing. He only took 3 shots. He had 3 assists, 13 boards. He had a block. But if you start thinking about it, he played 32 minutes. He's going to continue to see similar minutes going forward. This is a game where it wouldn't surprise me for him to get 3 combined blocks and steals, probably get a few more shot attempts, similar number of rebounds, may approach double digits. That's going to be one hell of a game, especially at 12. And now that the herd, the masses, if you will, are disappointed, they're not going to be on him. So that's something in particular on Yahoo. He already is in my shell lineup that I put in there. But I think that $5,000 price tag on DraftKings is intriguing it well. Moving over here to the Suns, we've got...
Hang on,
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention it. One spot where I think, because I mentioned when we talked about Austin Rivers, kind of just if he's projected to be popular, being able to find similarly priced guys that are just as bad as he is. Torrey Craig's one of those guys. I think that if you're going to, and again, this is predicated on Austin Rivers actually being somewhat highly owned, but Torrey Craig is basically the same price point. He's another guy like Rivers that is not a great fantasy point per minute producer. But in this matchup against Phoenix, I expect him to play towards the top of his minutes range because he'll be tasked with defending Devin Booker, who plays 36 plus minutes a night. Torrey Craig is out there for defensive reasons, and he's their best way of slowing down Booker. So I think that you get more minutes from Torrey Craig than you do from Austin Rivers tonight. And if he were to be lower owned, then I would just rather play him.
All right. Now, Devin Booker, TJ Warren, Kelly Oubre, no on Yahoo. I'm interested in on DraftKings. DeAndre Ayton, not really excited about, but he is clearly their talented guy and the wave of the future. What are you looking at from the core 4 of the Phoenix Suns? And yes, I am including Kelly Oubre in their core 4 now.
Yeah, I mean, no real priorities for me here. Devin Booker in tournaments, I think, is a really good play, especially pairing him with, a Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray. And, just because if Jokic goes out there and scores like 70 fantasy points, or for Jokic to be able to score like 70 fantasy points, you need Phoenix to hang in this game, and Booker's their best chance of doing that. So I think that he's appealing as far as correlation plays go, but from like a cash game perspective, I just think that it's tough to prioritize him because he's more expensive than Bradley Beal.
All right. One thing I do want to point out here, if you do have the Fantasy Cruncher or through Osmo the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, again, DFS strategy gets you 7 free days. You've heard me say that before. But one of the things you can do in these situations is set up groups. So if you say, all right, I'm going to play Jokic, you can say, I would also like to play 2 of whenever he ends up in my lineups, and then pick 4 or 5 Phoenix Suns and put them in there, and it'll feather through them as you get Jokic in your lineups. Because as Adam pointed, if he's going to have one of his high upside games, it's probably going to be pushed along from somebody by Phoenix, and that's how you can ensure on those lineups that you are at least getting him with you can say as many as this, or at least this, or no more than this from this group, and you can set it up in a way that you can get some synergy play from the opponents, which is something that I think a lot of times people forget about here in basketball.
Yeah, and I think that, like, adding on to that, I mentioned that Booker correlates well with Jokic Murray. The other way is where I definitely would want to prioritize it. Like, if I'm getting Devin Booker in lineups, I really want those Denver scorers in there, because if Booker drops 50, those guys are playing their full allotment of minutes.
All right. Let's see. Looks like we have sort of an update here that Wall is out. So I know some of the sites that listed him have doubtful. I don't expect him to play for the next week, is my guess. In listening to the broadcast last night when I was watching the game, the local announcers were talking about how that it has been intermittent, meaning it affected him, because remember, like 3 weeks ago this was an issue, and then all of a sudden he dropped 60 fantasy points in 2 out of 3 or 4 games. Now it's back again. And even Wallace said, he goes, sometimes I wake up and I'm totally fine, I don't feel a thing. He goes, other times all of a sudden the day's going along great, and all of a sudden it hurts and it feels like it's hot iron poking into my foot. That's disconcerting. I don't think this is a rehab thing, Adam. I think this is going to have to be a surgery thing to fix it, or we're going to deal with it. And some days you're going to be able to play and some days you're not. So I think until further notice, I don't really want to count on John Wall, even if we do find out he is active. That will be putting him in tournament consideration, because, good God, as we've seen, if it's not going to affect him the entire game, then he can put up some good numbers. But yikes, as a Wizard fan, is my analysis from the heart. 2 games to go. Golden State Warriors, Portland Trailblazers. Hey, it's a rematch. Home and home series here. We saw Damian Lillard get some nice little props from his hometown Oakland fans. He's now the host. We've got Curry, we've got Durant. Adam, you've pointed out that they're parsing their timeout separately, more frequently in the with the absence of shots falling for Draymond Green, and sort of for Klay Thompson. Thompson, you got at 6,000 on DraftKings. We got a lot of things to look at in this game. Let's start from the top. Let's start with the MVP duo of Durant and Curry.
Yeah, obviously, like both of them a lot. They're still at relatively appealing price tags, especially because, like you said, they're playing more minutes apart from each other now. You can project about 25% of the minutes that they play to be with the other one on the bench, which means that Steph Curry, since the start of last season, gets up to being like a 1.6 fantasy point per minute player when he's out there with Draymond. Without Kevin Durant, Durant's at about 1.45 fantasy points per minute without Curry. And it just makes it so they project a little bit higher. Their ceilings are a little bit higher, and the price tags are still, very reasonable. And then in addition to that, with Golden State just struggling right now, you are getting full minutes from these guys basically night in and night out, which means that you can project Curry and Durant both for about 38 minutes. There's a chance they play a little bit more, a little bit less, but as long as this game stays competitive, they should be coming in right around 38 minutes. And there's just a ton of upside for both of these guys. So I think that, they're both good plays. Like Curry at a cheaper price tag than Durant would be my preference, but Durant at small forward makes him very valuable as well.
All right. Looking at just calling out in chat. Hey, don't forget, we're going to put this on the old YouTube show. This will be up there for the remainder of the day. That's why we go game by game in order. So if you want to catch up or rehear what some of the analysis is, particularly from Adam, he had some nice breakdowns here on Anthony Davis and James Harden. I see that kind of circling back up here in chat for some of the people that are now jumping in to watch the show. So remember, this one's going to be on the shelf all day. It's in the can. It's something you can use as a reference piece. It's one of the things we want to do with this series is make sure it has at least shelf life up until, towards the deeper dive or live before lock, because there is a lot of moving parts in the NBA, and a lot of what we'll be talking about during these shows can be used in later game slates, can be used when these teams score off against each other. I mean, if you had listened to some of the other analysis for this very same game when it happened a couple days ago down in Golden State, Adam mentioned he was intrigued by what is Mo Harkless's defensive assignment going to be. So that sort of came to fruition. He got some boosted minutes there, so a couple other overtime factors and some of that. But he's 3,600 on DraftKings, and that's something that probably isn't going to be hit on most other shows today. But there's a cheapie that I think we can see get at least 26, 27 minutes, and we know Mo Harkless has a role, and we know he can do a little bit of everything and score. So nothing wrong with him. Not thrilled that he's power forward eligible on some of the sites, but whatevs, There's a discount play. There's an excellent play in the showdown slate. There's an excellent play on the late slate. So these are the fun little nuggets that you can file away for different things here. Looking down to Draymond, to Clay, to pretty much anybody else here on the Warriors, do the Dubs have anyone for you?
Not as a priority. Draymond was already priced up on FanDuel. His price jumped on DraftKings by about 10%, up to 6,700. I still think he's okay, but it's not like the really easy play that I thought it was last time these two teams played, especially when you compare him to other guys at the power forward position. Like on DraftKings, where you have Dedmon and Mason Plumlee for $1,000 and $1,700 less, respectively. It makes it so Draymond's just not a priority here, like he was last time.
All right, let's hit the Trailblazers. We've got here. So here's a fun one pricing on Yahoo. We've got Damian Lillard at 41. We have Yusuf Nurkic at 23. Well, yeah, I'd rather play Damian Lillard. We only have Nurkic projected 5 points behind Lillard. Now, remember, 3 for steals, 3 for blocks tends to set him up nicely. We're seeing Nurkic's price go up a little bit here on DraftKings. What do you like from the primary duo for the Trailblazers?
I mean, I like both of them. I like their prices, especially Dame on DraftKings at 8,300. I think that there's just so much upside there. It's really tough for him to fail at that price point. He should play around, between 36 and 38 minutes, assuming that the game doesn't go to overtime. But it's just really, really tough for him to disappoint you. And we know that he has that 60 fantasy point upside. So I haven't been getting a lot of Lillard in lineups recently, but this is a spot where I expect that I will get a lot of him. It's just someone who projects, to put it in context, he projects similarly to like a Kemba Walker, who's $9,000. He really is similar to Steph Curry, who's $1,000 more expensive. It's just a spot where ignoring ownership, that's something that can obviously sway where I end up going. But at this point in the day, just talking about matchups and price tags, I think that Lillard, just stands out as an obviously really, really good play. Nurkic is fine as well, though. Played 30 minutes in regulation, 35 minutes total last game. Didn't, get run off the floor or anything like that I know people like to be concerned about with Golden State. And he's, a very productive player. His usage has been down over the last month or so, down to about 22%, 22.5%. He was up around 24 earlier this year, but he's still a very good rebounder. He still can pick up assists, and he's still, well over a fantasy point per minute producer. So I still think that he's a good play, especially you mentioned that Yahoo price at $23, I think is really, really nice.
I wanted to throw that out there because that's the cheapest proportionally I could find him, and I know not that you need a little nudge or a little push to play Yusuf Nurkic, but I wanted you to see that he would probably be in your life this evening. Final game of the night, and we'll talk about a couple things over there on Thrive. Remind you of some of the other shows that we already have on demand on the YouTube channel covering Week 17 NFL. We've got the San Antonio Spurs heading into Los Angeles. The Clippers, oh boy, this is a back-to-back. They were on the road last night in the Staples Center because the Lakers were the hometown team. That was the first time those two teams have played each other. I thought they had played more than once this season. But what do you got here, looking particularly at DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, solid prices, a bit of a discount because of all the blowouts the Spurs have been involved in, both in their favor and not in their favor over their last 15 games. Talk to me about that while I go deal with my dog who is attacking whoever's delivering a package.
I love LaMarcus Aldridge here, especially at his DraftKings price. He's $7,000. DeRozan's price over there has finally started to come back up. He was below 8K a couple games ago. He's back to 8,500, and it basically becomes impossible to prioritize him over a Bradley Beal or even a Devin Booker. But LaMarcus Aldridge at $7,000, like Emac mentioned, the price tag is down because San Antonio has been involved in so many blowouts. You've seen Aldridge's minutes be down, but in both of those games against Denver, which were so 2 games ago against Denver, the final score was close, but the actual game wasn't really that competitive in the fourth. You got 32 minutes from Aldridge, but he barely played in the fourth quarter. He played about 37 minutes last night. I think if you can, again, if you assume this game stays close, you can project about 34 minutes for Aldridge in a really appealing matchup. I don't know who the Clippers will start. If it's Boban, it's a matchup nightmare. If it's Marcin Gortat, he's not going to do anything to slow down Aldridge. It's just a spot where the Clippers don't really have a center to defend Aldridge, and I think that it's a really appealing spot for him. He's always low owned, and so that makes him a really appealing play. Rudy Gay and DeRozan are secondary options for me, but Aldridge is the one that really stands out. And then with the guards, Derek White is playing minutes. What he does with them is anyone's guess, but he's sub $4,000. You certainly can take a chance on him. You can take a chance on a Bryn Forbes. Either of those guys are fine. I just wouldn't play them together.
All right, thank you. My apologies there. Fortunately, the dog alerted me that was a package that needed to be signed for. Adam, my wife, ordered herself an iPad. Her other one was, I don't know, like 5+ years old, and I had a nice little showing there last weekend in the $1 Million Baller on Yahoo. Got 25th. For 2K, played 4 in that lineup, played 4 or 5 of the guys that were in my article. That article's free on the homepage. We'll drop the link in there, but that was sort of a belated birthday Christmas present for her. I figured, why the heck not? Where are we? Anything else you want to hit on in this game now that I am late to the party? But I did get to play Santa Claus.
I didn't talk about the Clippers. I only talked about the Spurs.
All right. What happened to they disappointed across the board unless your name was Lou Williams last night. I mean, Harrell, not so great. Boban, wasn't expecting much from him anyway. But Harris, not awesome either. But they won. So I guess you can't complain. Where do you want to focus on them this evening?
So, I mean, they've kind of been correctly priced for a while, I think. There's some value in Tobias Harris at 7,400, but it's not a priority. Danilo Gallinari, he seems like one of the most underrated guys by people in DFS circles as far as his production and everything. The guys over the last month, Gallinari's averaging 1.1 fantasy points per minute. That's the exact same as Montrezl Harrell. He's averaging 7 minutes more per game than Harrell, and people love Montrezl Harrell. So I don't really get why people don't like Gallinari, but he's normally pretty low owned. I think the $6,400 price tag is pretty appealing on him, especially because Doc Rivers has talked about wanting to play him at center more, and against a Spurs team that starts LaMarcus Aldridge, I certainly would not be surprised at all if we saw a closing lineup with Gallinari at the 5. So I think that Gallinari is a pretty appealing play. If I had to go to anyone from the Clips, it would be Gallinari. Obviously, Lou Williams coming off the monster game last night, but it's just really difficult to project him for big minutes with any kind of consistency. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander barely played last night. Popcorn machine hasn't loaded yet, so I don't know if that was foul trouble or what, but that pretty clearly had a direct impact on Lou Williams. So it's just tough to pay an elevated price tag for Williams.
All right. Last guy we have here is brought up in chat, and I think it's a reasonable point to consider. Marco Bellinelli. While there are some other $10 options on Yahoo I like better, 3,600 shooting guard, small forward, which means you can slot him in damn near anywhere on your roster. For DraftKings, he has popped over 20 fantasy points, actually over 25 fantasy points in about half of his last 10 games, been in the teens in the others, 2 single-digit duds in there, but I don't know. I don't particularly hate it. This, I think, sets up as a little bit better of a game for him, but we do have potentially Pau Gasol back. We've got just kind of a mess. We never know what Pop is going to do here, but he does tend to trust Bellinelli for the minutes with the second unit as the primary scorer, because, I mean, are you going to go with Jakob Poeltl? Are you going to go with Davis Bertans? I don't know. I'd probably prefer Bellinelli in this particular matchup. Thoughts on him as we get ready to thrive?
I mean, if you're playing a bunch of lineups and you get some Bellinelli, I think it's fine. But amongst even the Spurs, like I'd rather play Derek White, who has played 28 minutes in 3 straight games. He's played at least 25 in 5 in a row, and it's just that he has a bigger role. Like Bellinelli, it's really tough for him to get enough minutes here to be able to give you like a tournament winning score.
All right, let me see here. Unmute. Yeah, I have to send an email into support at Yahoo. Or support. Yeah, send it to support at Yahoo. Send it to support at osmo.com for MRiv. You can figure out how to be unmuted. You might have actually been blocked. I don't know how to do that on the message board here, or pardon me, the Yahoo. I know how to put somebody in timeout, and I know how to delete them entirely. Don't ever make me delete you entirely, because I'm not going to let anybody know, and then you're going to be gone from this particular chat. So good luck with that one. Josh and Spags are way better at this than I am, but there you go. So we'll call it one strike you're in timeout, 2 strikes you don't come back. So there we are. All right, Adam, let's talk about Thrive here. I'm going to drop that link into the chat. Reminder, you click on this link, it will take you to their website. You can download this as an app. You can also play on their website. They have a nice little deposit bonus. Deposit $10, get $10. Deposit 100, get 20. Deposit 200 or more and get 50. That's available for immediate use for their bonus dollars. So check that out. Good deal for you guys. How this works is Thrive asks 20 questions. They post those in the morning, and then you select 10 of them for your quote lineup. Your points are awarded if you get the question correct. If you get it incorrect, there are 0 points awarded. It's binary. Think of it as player props because, wait for it, it is. The more likely an outcome, the less points you get. The less likely an outcome, the more points you're going to get. So, Adam, let's drop a couple here. You want to do some football, or do you want to do some NBA?
Yeah, let's go with NBA. They have the contests up now, so let's go with that. First one is Bradley Beal over under 23.5 points. You get 95 points for the over, 105 for the under.
I'm taking the over. I think you could have set that at 30, and I'd probably still take the over.
Yeah, I haven't projected for 30 actual points, so it's the over for me as well. Next one that I think looks interesting, over under 36.5 points plus rebounds for James Harden.
I'm going to take the over on that one. What is the discount for taking the over? For the
100.
Oh, it was even. I'll take the over on that one. I liked your point of him not being on a back-to-back, the Pelicans being on a back-to-back. Obviously, no Chris Paul, etc. So I like that one.
Yeah, I have him at 40.5 actual points. So points plus rebound, taking the over there as well.
For those of you at home, you can tell right now who Adam's favorite play of the day is.
Yeah. All right, so here's one that I think is interesting because from a DFS perspective, it's really just an unappealing game, the Memphis-Boston game. But you can look at Marc Gasol here, 27.5 total points plus rebounds plus assists for Marc Gasol.
What was it?
105 points for the over.
20 what?
27.5.
Points, assists, and rebounds. I think he's going to get it on points and rebounds, so the assist is a nice little bonus. I'm going to take the over on this one.
I have him projected for 28.5. So yeah, I'll take the over since there's more points there. All right. This is another one. Actually, didn't really touch on it during the Phoenix-Denver game, and I wanted to go back, so it works out perfect. But DeAndre Ayton, 27.5 total points plus rebounds.
I'm going to take the under.
I'm going to take the over. He's been playing more minutes lately. He's pretty consistently playing like 32 plus minutes, and his rebounding percentage over the last or since Devin Booker's return is at almost 24%. So we've seen actually some really good rebounding games from him. Not that he's limiting what the opponent does, but he's getting more rebounds for himself. So I have him projected for 31.9, and the over is 105 points. So I'll take the over there.
The only reason the factor for me in choosing the under is back-to-back for him. Still a young guy, potential. A lot of games that they've played. They're hanging around waiting for the All-Star break. Plus, a guy he could foul, actually two of them, in Plumlee and Jokic, particularly if he's tired. It wouldn't surprise me to see a reaching foul or an over exuberant over the back foul. So that's just what's pushing it for me. But I wanted to give some thoughts on that.
Yeah, perfectly fair. Closed it out with Steph Curry over under 37.5 points plus rebounds plus assists with 105 points for the over.
God, I'm going to take the under, but I don't feel great about it.
I have the over, not by a lot, but I think if anything right now, I have him under projected, and I'm still getting him at 38. So I'll take the over.
Okay. I just don't have a good. We've seen him and Lillard just have some outstanding you score, I score games against each other, which makes it just a worry for me. But I'm still going to go with the under. All right. That is going to do it for shows that we already have in the can that you can watch. We have On the Contrary with Osimo, Alex Baker, you know him as Osimo, the one and only Evan Silva and Chris Spags. That is the series where we get Osimo and Evan Silva giving their plays that are somewhat contrarian, which is going to be important on a week like this week where we have a lot of certainty type plays because we know which teams are playing for the playoffs, which teams are out of it, and who's going for contract milestones, team records, etc. We've got Andrew Barron and Ben Raza did a by position breakdown. That's on the From A to B. If you're into a little college bowl betting, we've got the Osmo Odds Show featuring Ben Raza. By the way, if you haven't caught that show, that's kind of a fun one if you are into the sports wagering, and I'm guessing some of you are. For those of you that don't know, that is Ben's, before he got into DFS and doing some DFS content, that was his main job, wagering college football, college basketball. What a life. What a life. He said, going into New York every day and doing this finance thing, just not quite for me. I think I'm gonna do some sports wagering. And lo and behold, there he is. He knows a guy, and there he is. Tonight you'll get Live Before Lock. I'm speculating that will be one Josh Engelman, so check that one out. Fast Eddie should be back soon from Mexico. I believe this is his grand finale night. You can find him on Twitter if you want to see some of the fun he has been up to. You can, of course, follow me at EMACDFS. It is Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS, and it is Osimo _COM over there on the Twitter machine. With that, gamers, good luck.